Absolutely. Let's make this truly unique, with a fresh and intriguing opening, no introductions, no relationship background dump, and no slow buildup like typical stories. Straight into the action. Here's your new version. Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel, where secrets are no longer secrets. Let's get right into it. Part 1. She was laughing at his joke when I walked past the window. It started with a laugh I hadn't heard in months. The kind of laugh where she throws her head back and doesn't care who's watching. I was on my way to grab takeout from the Thai place across town when I passed the house, his house, and there she was, my wife, in the front window, lit up like a scene from a movie, laughing at something Lance, her ex, had just whispered to her. I didn't slam the brakes, I didn't pull over, I just kept driving, but my hands were shaking so hard I almost missed the turn for the restaurant. What made it worse? She told me she was going to her coworker's engagement party. Strictly girls, she said, no plus ones. She even borrowed my car, said hers was low on gas. That's how I knew it was premeditated. When I got home, I placed the pad thai on the counter, stared at the untouched second fork I had set out for her, and waited. Midnight. No texts, no calls, nothing. I walked to the bedroom. Her side of the closet, half empty. Drawers, quietly raided. This wasn't a night out. This was a move. At 6:14 a.m., she walked through the front door wearing a hoodie that didn't belong to either of us. No makeup, red eyes, no explanation. She went straight to the fridge, took out a bottle of water, and finally looked at me. It wasn't about him, she said flatly. It was about how you made me feel. No apology, no guilt, just justification. I didn't ask questions. I didn't even tell her I'd seen them. But she must have sensed it, because later that afternoon, I noticed her deleting her call logs, photos, messages. Her thumb was shaking. She thought she was in control. She had no idea what I had already done the night before. And when she finally figured it out, her knees buckled. I didn't sleep the night she came home wearing another man's hoodie. I lay on my side of the bed while she pretended to be asleep on hers, her breathing too deliberate, too steady. The silence between us was no longer passive. It was hostile. That kind of silence carries weight. It presses into your ribs and fills the room like smoke. At 3:41 a.m., I finally got up. I walked into the living room, sat at my desk, and opened the folder I had hidden on my external drive for months. A folder she didn't know existed. Inside it were screenshots, phone logs, and a spreadsheet with every date and time she'd told me a lie. I'd spent weeks putting it together after her patterns changed. After she started using Girls' Night as a weapon and Jeremy's name as a shield. But this wasn't about confronting her, not anymore. It was about being heard. I printed the letter I'd written days earlier, a letter I never intended to share unless she crossed the line. She had. So I folded it, sealed it in an envelope, and tucked it into her purse while she slept. It wasn't angry, it wasn't cruel, it was honest. I told her that I knew, that I had seen her with him through the window, that I had paid attention to everything she thought I was too passive to notice. And then I ended it with a question I knew would rattle her. How long did you think I'd stay quiet while you turned my loyalty into a joke? At 7:08 a.m., I left the house without a word. I didn't take anything with me except my keys and my laptop. I didn't slam the door. I didn't text. I wanted her to sit in the quiet. I wanted her to look for that letter after I left, the same way I had searched for pieces of her loyalty every night for the past year. What I didn't expect was for her to show up at my office. 3 hours later, she walked into the lobby, still wearing the same hoodie, her face pale like she'd seen a ghost. She didn't say anything, just held up the envelope, crumpled now, and mouthed the words, "Why?" And I just looked at her. Because there was more she didn't know. The letter was only the beginning. When she mouthed, "Why?" in the middle of my workplace lobby, like she was the one who had been ambushed, I felt something shift inside me. Not anger, I'd already drowned in that. This was colder, it was clarity. I didn't answer her. I just walked past her, slowly, knowing she wouldn't follow. Delaney never chased, she only circled, like she was waiting for her prey to exhaust itself. Back at my desk, my hands hovered over my keyboard. I could still smell her perfume lingering in the air. Sweet, artificial. A scent I once loved, now soured with betrayal. I opened the email draft that had been sitting unsent for 3 days. It was addressed to her parents. I knew they adored me. They always said I was the stable one. And yet, she never told them the truth about what was happening. She probably figured I wouldn't either. But the attachments? Oh, they told everything. Screenshots from her cloud account that she never thought I had access to. She left it open on the kitchen tablet one night while tipsy, and I quietly synced it to a folder on my laptop. There were photos of her at Caleb's party, curled against him like they hadn't skipped a beat in 10 years. Messages she'd sent to her sister, saying she wished she'd never married someone so passive. And a voice note, the one that broke me the most, where she told her friend flatly, "I want to remind him what it's like to be unwanted. Maybe then he'll finally react." She wanted a reaction. She was about to get one, but not from a place of rage, from a place of strategy. I closed the email without sending it. Not yet. Instead, I did something else. I uploaded the entire folder, screenshots, messages, the voice note, to a cloud drive under a cryptic name, then changed the password to something only I would remember. The date of our anniversary backwards. It wasn't revenge I was planning. It was preparation. Because something told me she hadn't come to the office just to return the letter. Something told me she had read more than I meant her to. And I was right. That evening, I found a note on the fridge that read, "We need to talk. I didn't know you were capable of this." That was the moment I realized she wasn't scared of losing me. She was scared of what I might do next. I stared at the note on the fridge for over 5 minutes without moving. "We need to talk. I didn't know you were capable of this." There was no "I'm sorry," no admission, no regret. Just a subtle panic dripping through her handwriting. It wasn't love in distress. It was control, slipping. I didn't reply. I left the note where it was, unchanged, untouched. I took my shoes off quietly, went upstairs, and locked the office door behind me. She was in the bedroom. I could hear the rustling of drawers. Maybe packing, maybe pretending. I didn't care. I pulled up the cloud folder again. This time, I added something new to it. A journal entry I'd written after the 3rd time she lied to my face about working late. I remember every word I wrote that night. I wasn't angry. I was numb. I wrote about the way her keys sounded different when she came home after seeing him. I wrote about how she stopped humming in the kitchen, and how I started brushing my teeth longer just to avoid lying in bed next to someone who didn't want me there. I included it all. Raw, unfiltered. Not for her, but for me. So, when this finally came crashing down, I'd remember I wasn't crazy. I noticed everything. Later that night, she knocked on the office door, 3 soft taps. I waited. She knocked again, louder. I opened it just a crack. Her eyes were red, not from crying, from fear. That made it worse. She had always been so composed, so certain that I wouldn't push back. But now, her hands were fidgeting with the sleeve of her hoodie. The same one. She still hadn't taken it off. "You didn't send it to anyone, right?" she asked. I didn't answer. Instead, I walked back to my desk and sat down. She stepped inside, hesitant, like she was visiting someone else's home. "Look," she started, her voice trembling in that fake way people do when they're more sorry they got caught than sorry for what they did. "I didn't mean for it to go that far. Caleb was... It wasn't what you think. I was mad. You were always... distant. You didn't fight for me." I looked at her, really looked, and for the first time, I saw her without the filter of my loyalty. And I realized she wasn't asking for forgiveness. She was trying to manage the fallout, but it was already too late. Because the message I hadn't sent, someone else had already seen it. She froze when I said it. Just one sentence. Calm. Cold. "It's already been opened." Her mouth moved, but no words came out. Just this tight, stunned breath, like all the air in the room had been sucked out. I could see her replaying every file in that folder in her head. Every message, every image, every choice she never thought would surface. "Who?" she finally whispered, but her voice cracked like the question itself was dangerous. I didn't answer, not because I wanted to be dramatic, because I wasn't entirely sure myself. The night before, while I was uploading the final journal file to the cloud folder, I accidentally shared the link to a group chat I hadn't used in years. It was called Game Night Crew. Old friends, some I hadn't spoken to since before our wedding. One of them, I think it was Brandon, messaged me minutes later. Dude, is this for me?" But before I could respond, I saw it. Opened, 2 views, then 3, then 5. I revoked access immediately. Too late. Someone new. Multiple someones, probably. And I wasn't sure what would spread, how fast or to whom. I didn't want to hurt her. That's the thing that still makes me sick to admit. After everything, the lies, the gaslighting, the betrayal, some dumb part of me still didn't want to see her publicly humiliated. But fate had its own plan, and Delaney's worst fear wasn't me leaving. It was people knowing what she'd done. "You don't understand what this will do to my job," she hissed, suddenly switching from fragile to furious. "You can't control this now. You've blown it all up." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't even flinch. "So did you," I said. "You just did it slower." She backed away like I'd slapped her. For a second, I thought she might throw something, a mug, a lamp, herself out of the lie she built. But instead, she just stood there, stunned and sputtering. "They'll never see me the same again," she said quietly. "Then maybe," I told her, "you shouldn't have made sure I never saw you the same either." She left the house that night, but not before making one final mistake. She left her phone unlocked on the kitchen counter. The moment the front door slammed shut behind her, the silence didn't feel peaceful. It felt alert, almost loud, like the house itself was holding its breath. I stood in the kitchen, staring at her phone glowing on the counter. She always guarded that thing like it was a vault, keeping it face down, locked with Face ID and swiping away messages faster than I could glimpse them. But in her panic tonight, she left it open, unlocked, unprotected, and still, I hesitated. It wasn't about catching her anymore. I already knew what she was capable of, but part of me needed to understand what else she'd done, not to punish her, but to protect myself. I tapped the screen. No lock. The text thread at the top was with a contact saved under a single emoji, a black chestnut. I opened it. My hands were shaking so badly I had to sit down. There were dozens of messages, plans, recaps, jokes about me, memes, screenshots of my social posts with snide comments under them. Things like, "He's so oblivious it's almost boring," and "You're right, you do deserve better." The name attached to the number, not Caleb, not Jeremy, a guy named Troy, someone I'd never even heard of. And then I hit play on the most recent voice memo. Her voice was quiet, conspiratorial. I told him I was at Caleb's just to see if he'd care. He didn't. He just wilted like always. I almost felt bad, but whatever. One more night, then I'll talk to my lawyer. I sat there frozen, not even blinking. Not just because of what she said, but because of the date the memo was sent. It was from 3 weeks ago, before the party, before the letter, before everything. This wasn't a reaction. It wasn't revenge. It was a campaign. And I had been walking through it blind, mistaking calculated cruelty for chaos. She had already planned to leave me. Everything since then, the fake apologies, the trembling voice, the scared eyes, it was all damage control. I wasn't the wounded party in her mind. I was the liability. Just as I was setting the phone down, it lit up again. An incoming call from the same night emoji. And I swear something in me just snapped. I answered it. I didn't say a word. And on the other end, a man laughed and said, "Well, did he cry yet?" I didn't hang up. I could have. I should have. But instead, I stayed completely silent, gripping the edge of the counter like it was the only thing tethering me to the ground. On the other end, the man chuckled again, unaware that the person he was mocking was the one holding the line. "Delaney," he said, "you there? Or did you chicken out?" He paused, then kept going. "I was just thinking about last weekend. That wine you brought? Incredible. He paid for that, right? Poor guy." Another laugh. God, it's so easy when they don't fight back. Makes it feel almost unfair. Something inside me fractured right then. Not anger, not yet. Just this cold, hollow clarity. I pulled the phone away from my ear, hit record audio on my laptop mic, and set the phone on speaker. "Troy," I said finally. Dead silence. I could hear his breath catch. He didn't hang up. I think part of him was still trying to figure out if this was some cruel prank. I leaned in close to the mic and asked, "You said it was easy. So tell me, Troy, how long have you been sleeping with my wife?" There was another pause, longer this time, then a sigh, followed by the sound of a chair creaking. "Curtis, right? Look, man, I didn't know she was still with you. Not really. She said you two were basically roommates. His voice shifted, that slippery fake apology tone people use when they think they can talk their way out of moral quicksand. Honestly, if I'd known she hadn't told you, save it, I said flatly. You didn't care. You're right, he admitted. I didn't. And that was the moment I knew I wasn't going to confront her anymore. I was going to expose her, not with rage, not with revenge, with facts, with voices, with screenshots and receipts and everything she had tried to keep behind a curtain of fake smiles and filtered posts. This wasn't about making her feel pain. It was about showing her she could no longer rewrite the narrative while I stayed silent in the background. Before he could say anything else, I ended the call. Then I copied the full call recording into the shared folder. A few minutes later, I added every file, every message, every voice memo. And finally, a short video of myself reading the final journal entry I'd written that morning. My voice cracked. I didn't care. I wanted whoever saw it next to know that I wasn't a villain or a victim, just a man who finally understood the cost of swallowing his voice for too long. Then I sent the link to her parents, to mine, to her boss, and to herself. I didn't add a subject line, just one sentence in the body of the email. Here's the truth you never wanted shared. The morning after I sent the folder, I turned my phone off and went for a drive. No destination, just open roads and overdue silence. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel wrecked either. I just felt clear. Like I had finally put down a weight I'd been carrying for years, the kind that gets so heavy you forget what it's like to stand without it. By noon, my inbox was on fire, but I didn't check it. Not yet. I knew what was waiting. Her parents would be stunned. My mother would be heartbroken but validating. Her boss? Well, let's just say HR was CC'd for a reason, but none of that mattered more than the quiet inside me. For the first time in so long, I didn't feel like I was waiting for someone else to decide if I mattered. Delaney didn't come home. I didn't expect her to. She texted me once. No apology, just, "How could you humiliate me like this?" I didn't reply, because I didn't do it to humiliate her. I did it to free myself. And freedom, I learned, isn't loud or explosive. It's subtle. It's waking up and realizing you no longer feel the need to chase answers from someone who only ever gave you silence. Weeks passed. I moved into a smaller place, quieter, simpler. I filled it with things that made me feel alive. I adopted a rescue dog named Murphy, who thinks he owns the couch. I started therapy. I reconnected with people I hadn't seen in years. And one evening, while cleaning out the last of the old boxes, I found that gray pillow, the one that started it all. Turns out, I hadn't lost it. She had just tossed it in the garage, like it didn't matter. But it did, because it reminded me of who I used to be, and how far I'd come. If you're watching this, and you've ever been betrayed, underestimated, or made to feel invisible, I hope you hear this. Your quiet doesn't mean weakness, your patience isn't foolish, and your story isn't over, not even close. Thanks for following this journey on Reddit Confessions. Now, it's your turn. What's one tiny moment in your life, a forgotten object, a single sentence, a phone call, that changed everything for you? Drop it in the comments. We read everyone, and remember, sometimes the loudest revenge is peace.